Here I am at a horse farm in beautiful Calabasas, California. Today we're going to handle a subject that we don't handle that often on the website. We're going to be talking about horses, but not just horses, about horse abuse and horse neglect. I'm going to be here with my good friend Annette Nielsen Osterlund, and we're going to be talking about some of the abuse that goes on. Now I want you to understand there's a big difference between abuse and neglect, and we're going to take a look at some horses that were on death row but are now having a wonderful time living their life at this beautiful ranch. So stay tuned. We're going to tell you exactly how some of the stories these horses have are unbelievable, how they were being sold for auction or going to be sold for meat, and now they're just great horses helping people learn how to ride. It's a great day out here in Calabasas. We're going to take a look at a lot of different horses, speak to a horse trainer and a horse behaviorist that's going to give us some advice in terms of taking some of these abused horses and putting the smile back on their faces. So don't go anywhere. We're going to teach you everything you need to know about horses, so if you're considering a horse, at least you'll be able to have one and treat it properly. Well, here I am with Annette, and Annette, what's this horse's name?
Gorgeous George.
He is gorgeous, gorgeous George. Annette is a horse trainer and a behaviorist. Annette, why don't you give us a little bit about your background? I know you trained in Europe as well.
I was born in Sweden and started riding there as little kids on ponies, and then I ended up going to Europe and trained with the Olympic gold medal winners and the World Cup winners, and we went to all the big shows all over Europe.
These are primarily the horses that we use for dressage and jumping?
Yes.
And then when did you come here?
I came here about 15, 18 years ago.
And you know, we're going to be talking about horse abuse in a little while, but have you noticed any major differences between the way horses are treated in this country versus the way they're treated perhaps in Europe?
Well, at least when I was over there, what would happen was we always started taking care of the horses before we did riding lessons. And
so in other words, you would clean out the stalls and,
yes,
and muck everything and just...
Yes, and learn how to pick the horse's hoofs and make sure that the legs, there were no injuries, and then the riding started. And I think here often the riding school, if it's liability or the people are just want it more easy, is that they just want to ride. So they have some groom, get the horse ready, all they do is get on, have their riding lesson and get off.
So they have a horse, they drive up on Sunday morning in their Beamer, they get out of their Beamer, hop on the horse, get off the horse after an hour or two trail ride, hop back in the Beamer and get home, and then someone here cleans the horse up and takes the saddle off and cools the horse down.
I don't do it that way. Every single one of my clients, if I've been lucky, the adults or the children, they actually want to learn the way I was taught. But yes, that's how most places do operate.
And the other thing that really amazes me, you know, there are so many people have no idea about the number of phenomenal horses like this that could wind up either at auction or for food. And lots of times the problem is not necessarily abuse, but people just are undereducated in terms of the proper care. I remember years ago when I was a peace officer in New York State and I would investigate horse abuse cases. You know, sometimes I go to a riding academy and I just look at where the saddle was.
Yes.
And I say, you can't ride that horse, he's got saddle sores.
Exactly.
Or I'd look at the hooves, and the hooves were just so long that it was, and that can cause a lot of problems for a horse, right?
Yes, the hoofs, because of all their weight, is on that. And horses can actually be so bad that, as you know, that they have to be killed because of the neglect in the hoof care.
And people don't realize that very often when they give away their horse, and let's say, you know, they've had a horse and for whatever reason they have to give it away, it's up to them to make sure they find a legitimate place for that horse to go, because we were talking earlier, Annette, about, you know, how many horses are sent to Canada, France, Mexico, and it's not only the fact that they're sent there, it's the abuse that goes into preparing them. I mean, you've seen the pictures, I've seen the pictures, I'm sure listeners out there have seen the pictures of these horses just piled into these trucks, one on top of the other. There's no room to stand up, no room to lie down. I don't understand that mentality when you have such a regal animal.
Now, I've gone to, I know it's not legal anymore, but in the past it was, where you had those killer buyers that would come to the auction. These often very well-off people would sell their show jumpers or race horses to the killer buyer maybe in the thinking, oh yeah, somebody's going to come and buy them, just like they do with the dogs when they take, or cats when they take them to the shelter.
Exactly.
I don't want that animal anymore, but I'm sure somebody else is going to want to take it. And I've gone to those places, and some of mine are actually from these killer buyers down in Chino Hills.
Now these killer buyers, these are people that buy these horses and then take these horses and slaughter them.
That's right. And in the past we used to have the slaughters places in the United States. But now they have to go all the way to Canada or Mexico. And I've gone where the horses actually have broken legs and they still put them on the trailer to go 24, 48 hours. And probably...
It's like loading a car to these people. They don't realize there's emotions up there.
No.
You know, that's a good thing. I'm glad you brought up that point. As a behaviorist, one to another, a lot of people don't understand the concept that horses have emotions just like our dogs, just like our cats. I mean, you deal with the emotions all the time. We're going to talk later to some of the specific cases of some of the abused horses here and how emotionally you kind of had to bring them back from being, now I'm going to get, this may sound eccentric, and heaven forbid I should be eccentric, but from depression. I believe horses get depressed.
Yes.
I believe that owners can make horses neurotic. One person tells the horse to go this way, the other person, it drives me crazy. But your approach, from what I've seen, is kind of like my approach with dogs and cats. It's kind of a gentle approach. Get to know the horse a little bit. Let the horse gain confidence in you. Is that pretty much what it's about?
Right. Like you said, it's not so much about you, it's about them getting to know you, you know, the same as you do with a dog. Let them approach you. Don't be so bully. But then after, you have to establish that you are in charge, because that's, you know, they're herd animals. They want to be taken care of. But it has to be consistent, and yeah, they have to trust you.
And you know, from my perspective, there's nothing more associated with America than horses.
Yeah.
You know, and that's why, you know, we're going to talk about this later also, but I am a big advocate of the wild Mustangs.
Oh.
They should be left to roam. I mean, they should be roaming in New York City as far as I'm concerned.
Right.
But there's a lot of slaughter going on there as well. A lot of those horses are dying just because of stress and anxiety.
Yes.
What about stress in horses? People don't think that you take a horse like this. Now, this horse has a great home right now. He can walk around. He gets great food. Do you get good food? Speaking of food, Joe, get good food? Huh? I know how to do it. There you go. A lot of people don't realize that when you make a commitment to a horse, it's for a long, long period of time.
That's right.
The average lifespan of a horse, 25, 35 years maybe nowadays.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And so with the economy the way it is, are you finding because of the economy, I deal with a lot of horse rescues all over the United States, and I got to tell you, they are so full right now. Every single one of them is absolutely full because of the economy. People are giving up their horses, but they're not giving them up in a humane way. They're just showing up at a place like this or and just tying them up on the front, assuming that someone like you is going to take care of them.
That's right. And I'm sure you've heard of cases where they actually, not in the cities, but where it's more rural, that they actually just turn them out. And I think it's cowardly again, that if you absolutely cannot afford it anymore and you cannot find a home that you know can take them, I think it is better to humanely put them down. You have the vet come out, it's $150, and they put them down humanely. Unfortunately, last year, both in September, I had 2 horses that had to be
euthanized.
But it had to be done because the one was very sick and the other one had a broken leg, and the horses just can't survive with that.
There comes a time where you got to make those choices. They're not easy choices, but sooner or later you have to say that final goodbye to everything. But you give them, the concept here, Annette, is to give them the best life you can. Now, let's hear a little bit about this guy, Gorgeous George, right?
Yes.
Gorgeous George. How did you acquire Gorgeous George?
I have a friend that does the show jumping and the hunters, and we work together. And
so he was a show horse?
Yes, a very good one. And sometimes when they get injuries and people try all the conventional with the vets, and they just don't seem to get the horse 100% sound to do its job, and this was the case with these people, and they are very responsible people, that they said, you know what, we're not going to try anymore. Do you want to take him and see if you can do something where he can be turned out and not just have to stand in the stall and then go out an hour a day? So I've had him for probably 6 months now, and used a product called Rapid Response. That's a natural product that you can give internally, and you can also, if there's an injury that you can see, you can wrap. And it is amazing. The horse is sound again. He's jumping. Hopefully in the next couple of months we'll take him to the horse shows again.
He seems happy as heck.
Yeah.
That's all I got to say. Are you happy or is it just my cookies? Yeah, what do you think? Are you happy or is it just my cookies?
He likes the kisses
Yeah,
too.
you like kisses too. We're going to take a look at some other horses. But one more question before we go. How many people that are interested in having a horse or buying a horse, how often do you find that they get the horse before they have any idea of what's involved? It's kind of like love at first sight. You know, it's kind of like buying that puppy in a pet store window, which I'm 100% against. But it's kind of like, oh, what a great horse, I've been riding him, maybe I should buy a horse for my kids, not realizing what's involved with it.
Right. I had somebody come for a first lesson on Saturday, and the mom already said, do you want me to buy a horse? And it's great business for me, because obviously if I can sell a horse, then I can take another one in to take care of, or
board that horse.
Exactly, or have pay my vet bills or whatever. But I do not recommend it. I don't do business that way. I want them to know what they're getting into before they get. I would like them to ride the horse for a while, make sure that there is that bond between them.
Well, we were talking about that before. A lot of people don't realize just how smart horses are. For example, I've worked with horses, but I'm not the world's greatest rider. In other words, I'm not ready for the horse show or the rodeo, believe me. And if I were to get on Gorgeous George would know that immediately. This guy is kind of like a bit of a hack when it comes to riding. But yet if you were to get on Gorgeous George, he would know right off the bat that, hey, you know what? Annette knows what she's doing. I better mind my P's and my Q's here.
Right. And that's what I try to teach the people when they get on. Get on, you have to have, even if you're not confident, you have to have that confidence and show them that you know what you're doing, even if you don't.
That's why I think what you said to me earlier is such a great idea, is having the kid come here and clean the stable and be with the horses and get to know what it's all about.
Right.
And not be intimidated by their size, which people can be.
Right.
And then their confidence builds up. When they do start riding, they already have that confidence that we were talking about.
And that's why I love to put the little kids on the little ponies so that they can reach up and do the brushing and the bridling. And it is amazing that people actually do want to do it, and they want their kids to do it once they see what a great experience that is, as opposed to, like you said, just pull up, get on, get off, and leave.
Well, we're going to take a look at some other horses here, some that you have rehabilitated that were rescue horses. We're going to take a look at them. Then I'm going to ask you some questions about some of the biggest mistakes that people make in terms of not wanting to abuse their horse or not wanting to negate the horse's needs, but some of the things they don't understand, like feeding. How much should they feed the horse, or do they need fresh water all the time, which is obvious? Or what about the feed? How often do you have to have a farrier come in and take care of that? So we're going to talk about that, but I'm interested in seeing, there's one horse here that I'm looking forward to talking to you about, and I'm looking at him right now over there. You guys will see him in a bit, and that's Big Boy. And if you notice over here, if you can get a shot, Brad, that little Dalmatian over there, there's a bunch of those spotties running around here too, because not only does Annette rescue horses, but she also rescues some of those Dalmatians. And it's absolutely amazing how the horses and the dogs get along with each other.
Yes.
With Dalmatians and horses, they were meant to be.
Yes.
Let's go take a look at some of these horses and find out about their backgrounds. Well, here we are with Roxy, a beautiful, beautiful horse, another horse that Annette has taken under her wings, so to speak. What is Roxy's story, and how did you acquire Roxy?
Roxy, I went to go also where these killer buyers have their place where you can go and buy them before they go on the truck.
So in other words, where they have these auctions where these people go in and they buy these horses for food and slaughter, the average person like yourself could go in there and buy a horse to save.
Right. Okay. And yes, you outbid the meat price, basically. Okay. So if you pay a little bit more than...
So they're pretty much buying the horses by the pound?
Yes.
Wow.
So Roxy was there. I went to pick up a quarter horse for a client, and Roxy was there, skin and bones, and they were going to send her to Canada for the prim run, where they take the mares, get them pregnant, have them standing in a stall tied up 24 hours a day, collect the pregnant mare's urine. Then when the foal is born, usually there's no room, not enough people to take the foal, so they get killed and they impregnate the mare again so she can do it all over
and
again.
That's just to serve the women with menopause?
Yes. And the sad thing about that is that there is synthetic alternatives for that. You don't need that.
You know, I did a story on that years ago where there were synthetic preservatives, and yet for some reason, now is it still legal to do that in the U.S.?
I don't know if there's any farms in the U.S. I know Canada is still going pretty strong on it.
So in other words, this horse right here, the horse that we're looking at right now, that is a good weight, friendly, loving, huggable. This horse would have been tied up pretty much its entire life and just kept pregnant.
Yes.
Unbelievable. It's like a puppy mill. It's like a puppy mill.
Right. I mean, if you hold her, I'll take the blanket off and you'll see. And again, skin and bones coming off that truck. But they don't really care about feeding them as long as they do what they want.
I don't see any skin or, I mean, I see skin in that, but I don't see any bones right now. She looks pretty good to me. God, what a beautiful, beautiful horse. And again, if it wasn't for someone like yourself going in there and getting her, her life would have pretty much been over by now.
Yes.
And she says about 15 years old, maybe?
15, yes. And again, she was a winner at the racetrack. She actually
won at
won.
the racetrack. She made people money. She served people well.
Yes.
And then when her use of running was over, that's what. How many I know they do that with greyhounds, the dogs. But how many horses after their racing career is over, I wonder, are sent to these kill farms?
Yeah.
It just the numbers got to be staggering.
Again, yes, and especially with the economy the way it's been, that I think fewer and fewer people are taking on horses.
You know, a couple of years ago, I was down in one of my favorite areas in the country, in beautiful Lexington, Kentucky. We have these amazing horse farms down there, and you see these horses roaming in these fields of grass, and it's so wonderful. But those are the top winning horses that are used for stud purposes and breed purposes. And yet you say to yourself, what about the horses that consistently came in second or third? Where are they? They're not roaming around Lexington, Kentucky now, you know, so they're at a different location. So it's absolutely amazing that you saved this horse. Now, what does Roxy do now? She looks happy as heck.
Yes.
That's all I gotta say.
Well, she gives lessons. People learn to ride on her.
So in other words, for beginners?
She's actually been able to take beginners, and also kids ride her. We go on trail rides. So yes.
So she went from a horse that would have been tied up her whole life, probably having no more room than this, to a horse now that takes kids on trail rides and teaches kids.
Yes.
So in other words, in reality, we have a horse that was abused by people that's now teaching children how to be humane with animals.
Exactly.
It's a great story.
Yes.
You're a beautiful. I'm going to come back and ride you one day.
And I do want to say that about the race. You're absolutely right. It's the top horses, like Zenyatta, that people see and they ooh and ah. But what about the hundreds and hundreds of other horses that were not the top, that are so not treated well?
And the numbers got to be staggering. I know, for example, a few years back, the numbers of greyhounds killed in this country was 60,000 a year. 60. That number's dropped because greyhound tracks are going down. But it's unbelievable that someone who had a racehorse, whatever you think about racing, I know I have my opinion, you have your opinion about horse racing, but that's neither here nor there. What happens is, if you take something like this into it belongs to you, it's your responsibility to take the best care, and if you can't take the best care, as you said, find somebody or some group that can. Roxy, I'm so glad to see. Let's take a look at some of these other horses around here, and Roxy has a whole new lease on life thanks to Annette and people like you that are into rescuing not only dogs and cats, which we talk about a lot, but there are people that rescue birds and people that rescue horses. A winning racehorse that probably would not be alive today unless someone like Annette took the time and the effort to do the rehabilitation with her knowledge of behavior and training and make Roxy into the sweetie Roxy is today. And you got to agree, Roxy's pretty sweet. Here's another horse today that wouldn't be here if it wasn't for someone like Annette rescuing this horse. This is Sammy. Sammy was a racehorse that never raced. Why don't you give us a little bit of background on Sammy and how you wound up with him, Annette?
Yeah, Sammy was pretty crazy. I was out in Azusa area and tried to make it a business of taking horses like Sammy and train them and sell them to people. And this is when I first came over. And Sammy was so crazy you couldn't even get on him. He must have had some horrible experience when they tried to train him.
And he was being trained for the track?
Yes. He was 3 years old when I met him, and they had all given up on him. And since he was a gelding, there was no other life for him. So either he needed to do what the people wanted him to do, or he was going to be killed.
So it was either submit to those people who were probably pretty tough with him.
Yes.
Or come to someone like yourself who's going to take the time to teach him how to be confident.
Yes. And it took a long time with him, and I realized after the first 2-3 years that I wouldn't be able to sell him, because again, He's a great horse and has also done jumping and dressage, and I've actually shown him, and he has done well. But like you said before, he needed to know that the person was confident, otherwise he would misbehave.
So he's not the type of horse you're going to recommend a novice to hop on the back of?
No.
He requires a rider who's knowledgeable.
And again, because he was so abused, not because he's a mean horse, he's actually a very sweet horse. But sometimes you know how that is with dogs too, when they get so abused, they snap back into that mode.
You know what happens sometimes with dogs? It's an association. So in other words, it could be something like a dog that's really friendly with everyone, but might have been abused by a man in a hat. All of a sudden he sees a man in a hat, he associates the hat with abuse, or a mustache, or a deep voice. And you know, I don't think people give, and you would know even better than me, I don't think people give horses enough credit for their emotions and their intelligence. I've seen, in my career, I've seen horses that were sad. I've seen horses, I'm sure you said, that were happy. I've seen horses that were a little crazy but just needed some direction. Yeah. And sometimes, let me ask you this question, because I get it all the time. I always tell people that the more intelligent a dog is, the more difficult they are to train. For example, when I say to a dog, sit, and the dog looks up and say, yo, Warren, you talking to me? Then I know I have a bright dog. Do you find that with horses too? That
absolutely.
The smarter horses say, all right, Annette, make me do it, or show me how I'm going to do it.
And I love that.
Yeah.
That is...
that's the challenge.
Yes, and it's so great because you know they can do everything because they are so smart, and you just have to find a way to bring that out of them. And again, I'm sad to say, but most people don't connect in that way with an animal.
And that's the whole concept. It's really getting inside their head. And I always tell people, when you have a problem with any type of animal, you got to figure it from the animal's perspective, not your perspective. What's making the animal fearful? What's making the animal depressed? What's making the animal crazy? What a great guy you are. So you didn't make it in a racetrack, but you got a pretty good home here. Look at that blanket, huh? Nice. I got a jacket that looks just like that. What do you think? Let's go look at some more horses. And here we are with Devin, another story, another horse, another rescue situation, another horse that Annette helped out. And thank God there are people around like Annette who not only is a trainer and a horse behaviorist, but really has the understanding of saving the lives of so many horses that otherwise would have not been here today. Annette, tell us the story about Devin.
Devin was a winning racehorse in Europe.
A winning racehorse in Europe.
And somebody with a lot of money brought him here. Did not do well here, was one of those bleeders at the racetrack, so that he needed a medication for that and didn't make it. So the owners took him to a trainer to make him into a hunter jumper. And that girl was not successful with him. He bucked people off, and I think what must have happened to him is that he crashed through a jump, because when I got him, they then said, do you want to try? And I took him in, and he was scared to death of poles on the ground, jumps, everything, and it took a lot of years to get him over that fear. But it's been a great horse. When the training, the year I trained him for the people were over, they decided that they didn't really want to give me money.
They didn't want him anymore.
No, and they didn't want to give me the money for the training, so they said just take Devin as payment. And I really did not need another horse at that time. But decided to take him anyway, and he has also been a great horse. Has taught celebrities to ride, celebrities for movies, kids with disabilities.
He's just one of those gentle horses.
Yes, and Warren, you're going to come out and ride him.
Are you going to be my buddy?
Great horse.
Are you going to be my buddy? You know, it's incredible. You take a story like this. Here's a horse that's winning races in Europe, brought to the United States, and for whatever reason, his wealthy owners decide that they don't want him anymore, and just hand them off like he's a shirt or a car. It's a horse. It has feelings. It has emotions. It loves people. People love it. I don't understand. Now, you know what? You've heard me say this before, but I'm going to get a t-shirt that says, none of my friends walk upright. And the reason for that is because horses and dogs and cats are just so much more honest. They would never, in any way, shape, or form, abuse us the way some people abuse them. They just would never do it. Great horse. Devin, I'm coming back to ride you. We're going to take a look at a horse now named Big Boy. And he's called Big Boy for a reason, guys, because he's a boy and he is big. So hang in there. We'll show you Big Boy in a sec. Now, you may wonder what I'm holding in my hand. It's not a bowling ball. It's very, very, very heavy. This is a stone that came out of the colon of one of the horses here. I can't tell you the weight of this, but it weighs about as much as a bowling ball. It's really heavy. This was in the horse's colon, and the horse never would have survived, again, if it wasn't for Annette. But there's a happy ending. Just last week, Annette, what was this ribbon all about?
Well, Big Boy went to the LA Equestrian Center and won champion of the horse show in show jumping.
So this horse that had this stone in its colon, that would have died for sure, just last week won this ribbon in Los Angeles as a jumper horse.
Yes.
Incredible story. What do you say we go meet Big Boy?
Yes.
Well, here I am with Big Boy, and I told you, his name tells the story. He is a big boy, and that stone I just showed you, that's what came out of Big Boy. Now, Big Boy was a horse that would have died. Annette, let's hear Big Boy's story, because he's such an incredibly sweet horse, and he's so big. How many hands is he?
He's 19 hands.
Wow, and the average horse you said is?
16-1 maybe.
16-1, so he's a big boy. Big boy. And yet his temperament is as big as his body. He's just super friendly and lovable.
Great.
What's his story? I mean, we talked about the stone. That stone has to weigh 12, 13, 14 pounds that came out of him.
Yes.
He never would have survived if you didn't get involved. And I know it cost you a lot of money also.
Yeah, there was no doubt that after having saved him once, if it was possible to save him again, obviously I would. And he has another interesting story. So a lot of the people that buy these expensive show horses have them insured. And the trainer that had him broke him down. She did too much with him too early, and being so big, you know, it's like with the big dogs too, they often have. So what happened was, I have a friend that trailers these horses to be put down. So at least he was going to be humanely put down at 5 years of age. And the woman, the trainer, had been waiting for the insurance money to come. So in the meantime, he had been in the stall for probably 6 months and basically starved. So my friend said, you want to see this horse? He's injured, but maybe you could do something again with this product rapid response, since I had had success with it before. So the trailer pulls up, and here comes this horse out. He can barely walk on his left hind leg, and he's 500 pounds underweight. So
500 pounds underweight. That's a Volkswagen.
Yeah, no, I had never seen anything that bad. But sweet, as you can tell.
Even though he was out underweight, he was still sweet.
Yes. And had obviously been very neglected, like you said, even if not abused, like beaten. I know the so-called trainer drugged the horse to calm him before she rode him, because she was obviously scared of him.
I think she should be training horses.
Well, you know what? Exactly. But anyway, I did about probably 6 to 8 weeks of that rapid response, and then he got so much better I could start riding him again. And when I free jumped him over a jump and I saw how scopy he was, that's what I really wanted to do with him. Get his revenge by taking him to the horse shows and win. And you know what?
He won. We just saw his ribbon. So does he enjoy it? I mean, let me ask you a question. You know, there are certain dogs, for example, you know, I train a lot of dogs for drugs and bombs and all different types of things in my career. And there are certain dogs that don't want to do this, so you focus them in a different direction. You teach them something different.
Right.
You find the same with horses. Like, for example, some horses are not jumpers. They want to just maybe do dressage. And some horses don't want to do dressage. They just want to jump.
Yes.
So you, as a trainer behaviorist, do you have to do what I do with dogs, is kind of find out what motivates them and then work from that perspective?
Absolutely. And again, you see if they like, because you can't really force them to do something. I see that at the horse show, where it's obvious that the horse is sick and tired of going into the ring, and they would rear and the people beat on them, but you can't really get them to do it. They get to the first jump and the horse stops again and says, I don't want to do it anymore. And so it's good to find something else for them to do.
Yeah, that's what's so amazing about, you know, what I'm seeing in the horses you have here today, is that every one of these horses is happy. None of the horses are really scared. They're socialized, and that's another thing, that a lot of horses don't get the socialization around people. Like a lot of the horses that are kind of like
Big boy wanting to leave.
Big boy. Okay, I got a carrot for you.
Oh.
Huh? I'll keep you around. A little bribery. I would never do this with a dog, but with him. So how much does Big Boy weigh now?
2,000 pounds.
He can have whatever carrots he wants to. But now you ride him. He's doing fine. Obviously, he's got a great personality. What's also amazing is I'm looking at the 3 dogs here, the 3 Dalmatians, and they're like just so unintimidated by Big Boy. They're just like, all right, we'll lay down, we'll hang out. How difficult was it, or did they just all get along?
Yeah, you know, they all, like, you know, they came from the different shelters around LA.
So the Dalmatians are all rescued too?
Oh, yes.
Everything here is rescued?
Yes. And Lola, when I got her out of the Glendale shelter, I got her and Sita. They would just happen to sit in the same cage for different stories. I think she was a puppy mill dog, and Lola was owner abandoned because she was moving. And they said she was very vicious. And anyway, I got her out of the car here, and the first thing she did was run in and actually got kicked by Sammy. But she learned, they you know, they all learn.
They learn to adapt to each other, and Dalmatians are born to be around horses.
That's
anyway.
right.
So.
And I do want to say about Big Boy too that he has actually made it to the top of the show jumping by doing Grand Prix jumping. So
really? So he's like, this horse that would have been dead with that big stone in him, I forget the tens of thousands of dollars it cost you to get him healthy, but now he's proving to you that first of all, it would have been worth it anyway, but now it's even, you know, sometimes in life, revenge is sweet when you don't do it on purpose. It just happens. Right. So here you did a good thing. You saved this horse's life. You spent a lot of money, rehabilitated him, and now he's winning.
I'm very proud of him.
You're chewing on my finger too, aren't you? You're chewing on my finger. You don't scare me. I've been with bigger horses than you, yeah. What a great horse. What a great story. Big Boy, I'm coming back to ride the other one. Annette, we're going to talk a little bit more. Big Boy, you're great. Yes, I'll give you more carrots, I promise. Now, Big Boy's not for a novice rider.
You know what, he's been sweet enough so I can put the better kids on him, but again, he's my show horse. So
yeah.
But suddenly...
When's his next big event?
I think he's going to go to something in April.
In April. We gotta come down and film you, Big Boy.
Oh!
Maybe we'll come down and film you. What do you think? That's my belt. You're not getting my belt. You had enough carrots. You're not getting my belt. Too bad. Too bad. We're gonna be back in a minute. Well, you know, taking care of all these horses is an awful lot of work, and Annette doesn't do it by herself. She has her helpers, and here they are, Honey and the other Dalmatians that help Annette out every day. And they're all rescue dogs, not only rescue horses, but rescue dogs. Let's talk about Honey. Here's a perfect example. Now, first of all, I'm just amazed at how the dogs are getting along with the horses are getting along with the dogs. It's almost like they give confidence to each other and feel better about each other. What's Honey's story?
Honey's story is that I had lost a Dalmatian that I rescued, and she had breast cancer. So I thought, okay, I have enough room right now, and I'll take in another one, and I'll look online and see if there is any. And there was Honey sitting there, owner abandoned because she got too old.
So she got too old, and they decided, well, she's too old, so we're not going to keep her anymore. We'll take her to the show.
Right. And obviously she did have some issues, and she wasn't young anymore. And I went there and got her out thinking that if she had some bumps and things, and thinking if it was cancer, at least I would get her out of the shelter and have her humanely put down if that was the case. But when I got her back here to the ranch, and that's another thing, you see how they all get along.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Which people are always like, oh, how do they get along? So she actually got a little bit better and then got worse, and turned out that she had 3 ruptured discs in her neck and needed emergency surgery.
This is pretty much after you took her?
Yeah, I'd had her maybe 3 months, and had to rush her into surgery because she basically could not walk any longer.
And she's doing okay now?
She's doing much, much better, getting stronger every day. It's a process of a lot of therapy, but she's a great, lovely dog.
This is the big question, and we're going to end right on this, okay? We had the Dalmatians helping you out. We had a great afternoon here with all the wonderful horses. I'm coming back to ride my buddy over there, just so you know. I honestly believe in my heart, having rescued as many animals over the years as I've had, you know, horses, dogs, chickens, goats, whatever. I honestly believe in my heart that animals know when you save their lives. And I honestly believe that they pay you back every day for the rescue. And I was noticing with Big Boy and some of the other horses, and even the Dalmatians, and I don't mean this to boost your ego, because you don't need me to boost your ego, but these horses and these dogs know, by the way they look at you, you can tell. It's almost like they're constantly saying, thank you, Annette. The passion's still there. We were talking off camera. I was talking to Brad, who's shooting this film, and I was saying so many people that are involved with animals either get frustrated, or they lose the passion, or it becomes a business. And when you're dealing with things that are just so amazing, like Honey or Big Boy or any one of these horses or dogs, You just have to open up your heart and open up your soul and say, you know what, I'm going to do for them what I know they would do for me. And there's no doubt in my mind that if the horseshoe was on the other foot, those horses and these dogs would be rescuing us. Yeah,
That's
you
right.
agree with me. What a great day we had here with Annette Nielsen Osterlund, an amazing horse trainer and behaviorist here in beautiful Calabasas, California. And if you're out here, you know, we're going to give you Annette's phone number. Give her a call, you know, maybe go for a ride, take some lessons, board your horse. But take it from me. Before you leave your dog, your horse, your cat, your bird with anyone, get to know them. And that's why I would feel comfortable if I had a horse right now saying, Annette, will you take care of my horse? Having watched her hug and kiss all of these rescue horses and spending thousands of dollars to keep them alive and save them, it's good for my heart to know that there are people like Annette out there that are doing the right thing every single day. One more little note here. If you see a dog getting abused, if you see a cat getting abused, or if you see a horse getting abused, you can't do it all, but it's up to you to do something.